Hello viewers, welcome to my site. As I promised, I was going to start making some videos, so this will be my first one. Today I'm working on a 2004 Nissan Maxima. It's got a 3.5 liter engine. So this is a car that a friend of mine brought to me. He had heard about some of the work I was doing and was interested to see if I could do something with it. He had already taken the plenum off and replaced a few coils, the number 1 and number 3 coil on the back of this engine, and a few other things. They put it back together and it was still doing the same thing. I've already broken the engine down. I assume that everyone can take one down. The trouble is a lot of times putting them back together. I might even have a little myself. So I figured that's what would be good. So enough with the talking and let's get going. Okay, now like I said, I've already broken this engine down, and as you can see, here's where the intake manifold fits over the intake to the engine. I'm getting ready to put the intake manifold back on. Right down here I found a dead bird laying in here, and it was all filthy and dirty. Plus, when I had to scrape off the surface of the where the intake bolts on, the inlets, all that had to be scraped off and cleaned, so thus the paper in the chambers. Now I'm going to vacuum this out. Okay, I'm just going to clean all that out real good in there, and then we'll just pull this paper out. Now next we're going to make sure that we get all this stuff out of the inside, so I put a special adapter on my vacuum cleaner so I can get in those ports. Get right down there next to those valves and try to get out anything that I possibly can that was left in there. Okay, here's a picture of the intake manifold. I'm right now taking a razor knife and just scraping all the old intake, all the old gaskets material off of here. This has to be perfectly clean so that when I put the gasket on and tighten it back down, the surfaces match up very well. They have to be almost as close to perfect as you can get it, because this is where I suspect that the manifold was leaking before. Right, one of these ports right here, I think, is where we were getting some of the vacuum leaks that was causing some of the rough running. But that was why I had to take it off. I had to put a flat edge across the top of that. I'll show you what I mean. I use this metal measuring stick. I use it for laying out when I'm working on woodwork or that type of thing. But anyway, I lay that across there. I go across it at different stages or different places, and then I'll slide one of my gauges underneath there at different points to make sure that that place is tight. I wish I could do that for you and show you the point, but I know you know what I'm talking about. Go that and slide your gauge under all the different places where the leak would matter, and try to make sure that that surface is flat all the way across from end to end. That has to be to keep that from leaking, okay? All right. Okay, I'm ready to tighten this intake manifold down now to the engine. As you can see, here is the pattern for the bolt sequence. This is the front of the engine over here to the left. And so if we laid this down, we'll see there that we want to follow exactly. We want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and that's just about the pattern you always do on one of these big engine parts like that. But anyway, that's what we're going to be doing. First of all, I'm just going to tighten them by hand. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to snug them a little more, up to 50 pounds, and then I'm going to go back down on them. I think the spec on this is anywhere from, what is it, 78 to 95 pounds. So that's what I'll be doing. Okay, we're moving along on the job now. We're back in the shop, and we're with Chad, a good friend of mine that brought this car over to me to repair. Chad's over here working on the fuel rail, replacing the O-rings on the injectors, top and bottom. Why go through the trouble of putting this much of a job, much effort and money, if you're not going to do the little stuff that a lot of people like to pass up? This is the kind of thing that will come back to haunt you. So before we're putting it all back together, we're going to make sure we cover all of our bases. Okay, we're going to get back to you here in just a minute. We're going to get all this ready to throw the upper plenum, or the plenum on the intake manifold that I just bolted in and torqued down. I had an injector that I had to repair. I'll show you that real quick. Instead of pulling the line out, I disconnected the old injector. The old injector was shorting out on the end, and that particular coil had shorted out badly and was misfiring. There's the old piece, and right there is where the wires were exposed. But anyway, we just went ahead and cut that off and installed a new one. And when I put it back together, I went ahead and soldered that fitting. I didn't want any resistance in the connection. If you look at it, you can't even really hardly tell it that it's had any work done on it. There it is right there, sticking up. So that'll last us a good while. And our intake manifold is ready to receive our plenum. And after that, we should be able to fire it up and see how we're doing. I still think we're going to have trouble, though, with that fuel pump, but we'll see. Okay. Well, it's about 35 degrees down out here in Chicago now, so we're about to freeze our butts off out here trying to finish up this car. Chad is making the final hookups on the EGR tube over there, and we'll be ready to fire it up pretty soon. So we got the intake plenum back on. We got the coils, the new coils on the back row, and the other coils are here in the front. At least if we have to change these now, we'll be able to do that without taking the engine apart. So we're just going to keep moving on. We'll be ready to start here, and when we get ready to do that, we'll get back to the film and continue on. How you doing there, Chad? You about to freeze to death?
No.
That's a real man right there.